The blood contract, why God's darkest trials are not a curse, but a secret initiation. There is a path that only a few souls on earth are chosen to walk. And make no mistake, it is not paved in light. It is paved in fire, silence, exile, and war. It is the path of the dark chosen ones, those who were marked before birth. Those who carry the weight of divine codes that cannot be activated through love and light alone, but through destruction, death, and deep remembering. You didn't stumble into your pain. You were sent into it. Because long before you arrived here, you signed something few would dare to touch: a blood contract with the divine. Not the soft, benevolent face of God that humans pray to when life is gentle, but the other face, the one that tests your very soul. The one that gives no comfort, only confrontation. That is the God who forged the 7 shadow tests. And only the strongest survive them. The first test is the shattering of identity. This is where your old self dies violently, suddenly, without mercy. You lose everything you thought defined you. Your job collapses. Your relationships decay. Your status, your sense of purpose, even your name may lose meaning. You become unrecognizable to others and to yourself. This is not a breakdown. It is a divine demolition. You were too attached to your human mask, so the shadow god tears it off. You are placed into a spiritual void where nothing makes sense and no one understands you. And here lies the first secret. The more you resist, the longer you bleed. But if you surrender, you begin to glimpse the truth that your soul was never meant to fit in. It was meant to reconstruct reality from the fragments. This test isn't cruel, it's surgical. It removes what is false so your real archetype can emerge. The second test is the isolation of the soul. After your identity is shattered, you are pulled into a deep solitude. Friends vanish. Lovers betray. Family feels foreign. Even your guides go silent. You cry out to the heavens and hear nothing in return. This is not abandonment. This is alignment. The shadow god removes all external validation so you can no longer outsource your power. You're not being punished. You're being rewired. Your own voice becomes the only compass. And this is where most break. They run back to comfort, to religion, to distraction. But the strongest dark chosen ones stay. They sit in the silence. They stop begging to be saved. And something shifts. A new frequency rises from within the voice of your higher self, no longer distorted by noise. You begin to feel your own divinity not as a concept, but as a force. And from that moment, you are no longer alone. You are activated. The third test is the betrayal of trust. This one cuts the deepest, because it always comes from the ones you least expect. The friend you would have died for. The lover you thought was your twin flame. The teacher you gave your loyalty to. They turn on you, lie to you, leave you bleeding. And you feel the sting not just in your heart, but in your core. Why does the shadow god allow this? Because betrayal is the final severing of dependency. You must learn that trust is not given outward, it is forged inward. Every betrayal is a mirror showing you where you abandoned yourself first. And once you learn to hold your own loyalty, you become untouchable. You stop seeking saviors, You stop projecting divinity onto others. You become a sovereign field. And that's when the betrayals stop. Not because the world changes, but because you no longer need the wound to teach you. The fourth test is the temptation of power. This is the one that separates the chosen from the fallen. After you have suffered, survived, and awakened, the universe presents you with a test wrapped in beauty, success, influence. You are offered a shortcut, a path of less resistance, a taste of forbidden fruit, and it looks divine, but it comes with a cost: your integrity. You must choose, ascend through alignment or ascend through illusion. Many fail here. They choose the easy path. They start manipulating. They chase clout. They sell their essence for applause. And slowly they lose their divine spark. But the strongest dark chosen ones know better. They feel the frequency behind the offer. They see the hook in the honey, and they refuse. Not because they're perfect, but because they remember, anything that costs your soul is not a blessing, it's a bribe. So let me ask you now, not as entertainment, not as theory, but as a soul who remembers, which of these tests are you in right now? Which one has broken you open? Which one are you still resisting because you don't yet trust what's on the other side? Be honest, because until you face it, you can't pass it. And until you pass it, you are not yet who you came here to be. You've now seen the first 4 shadow tests, and they were never random. They were rituals of refinement. But the next 3? Those are the ones that will define whether your soul truly ascends or disappears into the illusion of awakening. The Abyss Crown, how the final 3 shadow tests forge God-level consciousness in the few who survive. You've already walked through fire. You've been stripped, isolated, betrayed, and tempted. And yet, here you are still breathing, still standing, still remembering. That alone makes you rare. But not all who begin the path finish it. Because the last 3 tests are not about survival. They are about sovereignty. These are the tests that do not just awaken you, they crown you. But only if you can walk through them without flinching, without faking, and without folding into the illusion of healing. When what's really needed is evolution. These final tests are not designed to hurt you. They are designed to activate the God code within you. And once you pass them, you don't just operate as a spiritually aware being, you operate as a living force of divine correction in a world addicted to falsehood. The 5th test is the mirror of shadows. In this test, you are no longer fighting the world, you are forced to face yourself in the rawest form. Not the version you show the world. Not the curated, awakened spiritual identity, but the primal one, the jealous one, the manipulative one, the one who still wants praise, power, and revenge. This test doesn't come with thunder. It comes in silence. In the middle of a breakthrough, when everything seems to be going well, suddenly you are triggered deeply, and what rises is not peace, but rage. Not compassion, but control. And you must choose, will you bypass it with love and light language? Or will you sit in the fire and say, yes, this too is me? The only way through this test is radical ownership. You don't need to fix the shadow. You need to integrate it. You must become a being who can hold all of yourself without shame, without denial. That's how you become whole. That's how you stop leaking power. Because true divinity is totality, not superiority. The sixth test is the silence of God. After you faced your shadow, you expect reward, clarity, divine affirmation. But instead, the universe goes quiet. Your guides vanish. Your dreams go dark. Your manifestations stall. It feels like abandonment, but it's not. It's the final refinement of your faith frequency. Can you still walk like a god when the heavens go mute? Can you still move with command when there's no confirmation? This is the most advanced test because it strips you of reliance on signs, symbols, and support. It forces you to become the source. The strongest dark chosen ones pass this test, not because they feel strong, but because they refuse to bow to their doubt. They keep building. They keep praying. They keep walking. Not because they hear God, but because they are becoming God. That's the entire point. The silence is not punishment. It's promotion. You're not being tested to fail. You're being calibrated to create without needing proof. And the seventh and final test is the return to the world. After all you've seen, all you've lost, all you've become, this is the moment where you are asked to descend back into the illusion, not to be consumed by it, but to reshape it. Can you live among the sleeping without falling back asleep? Can you love without attachment? Can you serve without savior syndrome? Can you carry the codes of the abyss and still smile at a stranger, still hold space for the unawakened, still laugh, still dance? Still be human without forgetting you are cosmic? This is where many fail. They ascend, but they isolate. They awaken, but they judge. They gain power, but they forget compassion. They become gods in theory, but tyrants in practice. But those who pass this test, they become legends. They become mirrors of what's possible, not perfect, but potent. They walk into a room and recalibrate the frequency. They speak, and realities bend. Not because they want to be seen, but because they are the seeing. So let me ask you now seriously, deeply, without filter, which of these final three tests are you resisting? Which one terrifies you the most? Is it the mirror of your own darkness? The silence that makes you question everything? Or the return that demands you live as a master among chaos? Don't lie. Don't perform. Just feel. Because the test you're most afraid of is the one that holds your crown. You've now seen the seven, not as fantasy, not as metaphor, but as a real, living gauntlet that only the strongest dark chosen ones are invited to walk. And now one choice remains. Will you finish the path? Or will you retreat into the illusion, softer, safer, smaller? The throne of fire. What happens when you pass all 7 shadow tests and become a living portal of divine authority? To pass all 7 of God's shadow tests is not to graduate into peace, it's to awaken into power. Not the kind that is handed to you through status or symbols, but the kind that is earned through death after death after death, death of identity, of illusion, of separation. You don't walk away from these tests the same. You don't even walk away as a person. You walk away as a force. A living, breathing portal through which divine order enters a world addicted to distortion. This is not a metaphor. This is literal. When you pass all 7 tests, something ignites in your field a flame that does not burn from ego, but from alignment. That flame is what I call the throne of fire. And once it's activated, Nothing, absolutely nothing, can unseat you from your divine command. When you sit on the throne of fire, the first thing that changes is your relationship with reality. You no longer see reality as fixed or something that just happens to you. You see it for what it is, a frequency mirror, a malleable field waiting to respond to your vibration. You begin to understand that time is not linear, it is responsive. That people are not separate, they are reflections. That obstacles are not punishments, they are programmed resistance points to refine your precision. You stop reacting and start engineering. You code your days, your relationships, your next moves with intention so clear it borders on cosmic architecture. And you don't do this with obsession. You do it with sovereign detachment. This is the paradox. The more you surrender control, the more control you realize you always had, but only from the throne, not from the wound. The second thing that happens is your energetic field becomes a weapon and a womb at once. People feel you before you speak. They either open or recoil. Doors open without effort. Sometimes people cry in your presence, not knowing why. Sometimes they attack you, projecting their shadows onto your light. And you don't flinch. Because you understand something now: you are not here to be liked, or feared, or followed. You are here to recalibrate. Your presence alone becomes a disruption to falsehood. You don't need to argue or convince. Your field does the talking. This is why the tests were so brutal, because your energy had to be tempered like a sword. If you had skipped any of them, you'd be leaking power, abusing influence, or folding under pressure. But now, you are steel and soul, fire and silence. And that balance makes you untouchable, not because you're invincible, but because you're aligned beyond manipulation. The third transformation is the collapse of karmic gravity. You're no longer bound to the loops that held you before: ancestral patterns, soul contracts, emotional addictions. You feel them trying to pull you back, and you no longer respond. That friend who always needed saving? You release them. That trauma loop you used to spiral in? It dissolves. That fear of judgment that once made you shrink, on. Not because you forced it, but because it no longer exists in your bandwidth. You've transcended it, not in theory, but in frequency. You walk through old places and feel nothing. You hear the voice of the past and remain unmoved. You don't even need to forgive anymore because you've become so whole. There's nothing left to avenge. This is what spiritual freedom actually looks like: not detachment from the world, but non-reactivity within it. You are here, but you are above the game. And finally, the deepest realization of all: you are no longer seeking God because you have become the embodiment of divine will. This doesn't mean you are perfect. It means you are pure. Not in morality, but in congruence. Your inner world and outer world are no longer at war. Your thoughts, words, and actions are synchronized. You no longer pray from lack. You speak as law. You don't beg, you declare. And what you declare becomes form, not because you are manipulating energy, but because you are aligned with the current of divine intelligence itself. You don't ask, "What should I do?" anymore. You ask, "What is required of me as a vessel of cosmic order?" And when you live like this, the universe does not delay. It delivers. Instantly, because you're no longer in the queue. You are the source. So let me ask you now truly, deeply, what would your life look like if you stopped negotiating with your power and started commanding from it? What would happen if you stopped using healing as a hiding place and stepped fully into your throne? Who would you become if you trusted that your pain was never punishment but prophecy? That every shadow test was not trying to break you, but to forge you into the one who rewrites the laws of fate itself? Think about that. Not with your mind, but with your being. You've now been shown the entire path, all 7 of the shadow tests, the truth of what lies beyond them. And the invitation is open, but it's not for everyone. Only the strongest dark chosen ones survive, and even fewer thrive. But if your soul is still burning, if your fire grew stronger through each word, then you are not watching this video by accident.